Today's podcast is supported by David Smith of Edward Jones. Are you happy with your financial strategy? Or maybe like to see what other opportunities are out there? Well, give David a call at 469-372-1587. That's 469-372-1587. David is only concerned about one person, that's you and your financial health. So check him out, David Smith, Edward Jones, 469-372-1587. Hey everybody, it's the Trout. Hope you're having a great day. You know, over the years that I've been watching concerts, whether it's in person or on TV or YouTube, I was always intrigued by the companies that sponsor musicians that I like. You're probably wondering why. Well, you know, as a musician myself, I know it takes a lot of money to go on tour. Not that I've had that opportunity to go on a major tour, but the fact is when you see multiple semis coming down the road with a logo on the side of them, and the band that you like is coming to your town, that intrigues me. And one of my favorite artists now is Joe Bonamassa, the great blues player. Joe is sponsored by a company called Brulot. First, I had to find out what Brulot was. And secondly, I wanted to know why they would sponsor Joe Bonamassa. So luckily for me, the co-founder, CEO, and president, Francisco Tonarelli, was kind enough to sit down and talk to me about the product, Brulot, which is cognac blended with coffee. And you're like, what? More about that later. How the company got started, and why the relationship with Joe Bonamassa, the great musician, is so important. So in this episode, you discover all that and even more. And you're going to find out why it's important to have a sponsorship when you're an artist like Joe. So up next, a CEO of a cognac company talks about rock music and blending that with cognac to provide sponsorship to a great artist. That's next on The Trout Show. Grand Brulot, the first premium French cognac 80-proof coffee spirit made in France. It revives a 200-plus-year-old French tradition where rich coffee was blended with cognac to create an exquisite tasting drink. For more information, visit our website at grandbrulot.com and discover this 200-year-old tradition. Grand Brulot.
Basically, if you haven't seen the bottle, this is Grand Brulot, right?
Right.
So this, me personally, my career was always in packaged goods.
Mm-hmm.
I worked with Colgate-Palmolive in brand management, Pepsi International.
Okay.
Then in spirits with Bacardi, with Seagram. And I was CEO of Stock Spirits USA.
Oh wow.
And I was always involved with building brands, right? But I built them for companies. And I always told my family, I said, I don't want to die saying I could have, I would have, I should have.
Oh yeah, I know that feeling.
Yeah. So and most importantly, you got to have fun. So in terms of Grand Brulot, I've always been enamored with the consumer, and specifically in this case is going with the spirit to the consumer.
Mm-hmm.
And a friend of mine, John Bernbeck, called me one day and said, listen, I was having dinner, and one of the partners presented me this brand that his friend had in France. He's looking for investors, and it tastes really, really good, and I'd like you to take a look at it, see what you think, and maybe it's something that we can develop. So I said, listen, I never say no to anyone or anything, because the worst favor you can do to yourself is not know more.
Yep.
Right? And have the humility to basically say, I want to learn.
Right.
So anyway, so this guy came over with this brand. The brand tasted delicious. The packaging looked pretty neat. And then I do what I do. I looked at trends. I looked how the world was responding to cognac.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing a deep dive into the ubiquity of coffee. What were the key messages there? What to look for. And this brand, Grand Brulot, that I was looking at, had enough touch points that I thought would be interesting to develop. So John, together with me, He brought in some incredible investors, people like we have the ex-COO and president of Coca-Cola Global,
Mm,
the CEO of Starwood. We had some really great people that formed a really nice think tank.
right.
So we tested the brand, we created it, listening again. Another important thing is listening to people. So we brought those people that were that were going to dictate the success or failure of anything that comes before them. So we did sampling tests, research tests in New York among African American general market bartenders, mixologists, and bar owners to tell us what they thought. Right?
Because your
So
product is not something everybody drinks. I mean, a cognac based, I was telling people about your company.
Yep.
And I got to ask about the blending in a minute, but
Yep.
and I said I used to drink occasionally a Cavassier, and a good friend of mine goes, "What's that?" Well, it's VSOP for one of the things. That's the first thing is, and I said I was at a dinner one time. I actually got 100-year-old Cavassier, so I know that what you're going for is not your general public person that's going to drink. It's a different level of person. It's more what I guess you can say has more taste in adult beverages. Am I correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. And that in of itself was the challenge. And that's basically my relationship with everything. I love a challenge, but the challenge has to be based and supported with facts, trends, things that I can put my hand around, because the consumer will never tell you they'll never tell you what they'll buy. They'll tell you what they're missing. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, for example, well, I can go on into my experience with Colgate with new products there, but in the case of Grand Brulot, people were drinking cognac, but 70% of it, like the Hennessy franchise, 68% is African American, right? And Hennessy has
what was the percentage again?
68%.
Oh wow, I had no idea.
Volume.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So it was one of those things where they're an important component, but they're used to drinking, Henny Coke, Henny Ginger.
Oh, they're blending. It was something, not drinking
Henny
straight
honey.
up. Yeah.
Right. So for me, it was, we had that base of people that were drinking cognac, and the reason that I took this on was because cognac was growing. And I literally said this, if I related to my tequila experience at Seagram when we bought Don Julio, created in 1942, was that we had the tailwinds pushing us in terms of growth of cognac because of cocktailability, premiumization. People were looking at craft spirits. Flavored spirits were growing. Like, for example, the flavored spirits in vodka and it should be vodka, Baskin Robbins, 31 wonderful flavors.
Boy, and that's the truth now.
Right?
Yeah.
And then you had whiskey with honey.
Oh yeah.
Right.
And cinnamon. Don't forget the cinnamon. Red hot.
Cinnamon. Yeah.
Went crazy.
Yeah. Well, I forgot what to quote. But anyway.
Fireball. Yeah.
Great brand, right? So you had all these things that were evolving in the category. So Grand Brulot, it was I want to make sure that the base made a quality statement. So it was VSOP. Our VSOP is typically 6 years in barrel, right? It's all French oak, Limousin, and some Tronqué, which are two different woods. The coffee had to be something important, so we chose Ecuadorian coffee with the Robusta bean, which is higher bitterness. We went again conventional thinking. Everybody would do Arabica coffee.
That's true.
We did a Robusta, which is 33% of the world market, and it's very bitter. But that counteracted the sweetness inherent in cognac. Right? So you find a really nice balance in Grand Brulot between the coffee and the cognac.
Right.
And then we have the caffeine, because if you're saying coffee, well, you should have caffeine. So we have natural caffeine.
Gotta have caffeine, yeah.
And then, for me, it's I'm a purist. So I said, we can make a lot more money if we have less alcohol. But I said, but this is not about saving money. This is about building the right brand for that person we deem is going to appreciate it.
Right.
Is going to like it and is going to drink it. So Grand Brulot it's an award-winning 80-proof spirit, blended and aged with VSOP cognac, and gives you a shot of caffeine with every pour. Right. And then the caffeine content is the same you would have in an espresso. so it fits a
Oh,
digestif after dinner, right? So
yeah.
there's nothing crazy about it. It's all, one of the things I was telling somebody the other day was I like to do what's right, not what's popular,
Mm-hmm.
and you got to
Mm-hmm.
be principled, right? So if you
Right.
do things for the right reason, at least you can explain it.
True.
And if it doesn't work, well, you're getting there's assumptions, and there's a criteria that you can evaluate and build upon further. So then Grand Brulot, we launched it, and we're in France. Paris is one of our best markets.
Mhm.
We're together there with in many of the restaurants and bars of Paris society, which is Le Maison Rouge, Moom,
Mhm. Oh,
Coco.
yeah.
We're
Hmm.
in London. We're in New York, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Georgia, Florida, Texas, Tennessee. Limited presence in California, but as a young brand that was able to survive COVID, and showed a lot of resiliency.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're back out there. We're plugging. We're working really hard
Right.
to make it the success
So
that
when
we
did
envision.
when did you launch it? When was the launch?
The official launch was fourth quarter 2018,
Okay.
and then we did really well in 2019. Then COVID hit and basically pushed the reset button.
Now, did you
Right.
launch it in America and France at the same time, or did you go to Paris?
We launched originally. We launched in London
Okay.
and New York, then soft in Georgia,
Okay. And I assume Atlanta.
and right,
Yeah.
and then we went, and then Paris had a limited presence because we were again, everything in the spirits industry. Execution is 99% of the game, like a lot
Hmm.
of things, right? So
Hmm.
you have to have a distributor. The distributor, it's all those ways before you get to the consumer. So it was finding that right route to market that made sense. So Paris came on a little later, but right now we're in all those markets that I just mentioned.
You know, it's funny. I'm sitting here thinking what you're saying, and I kind of start thinking how Joe Bonamassa starts filling into this in a minute. So
Right.
what I didn't think about, because I saw it, I went, I'm a coffee drinker. I've had, I think, three or four of the top coffees in the world. I'm not a snob, but it's like
Yeah.
I know what the good stuff is. And I thought, cognac with coffee, I don't know. But then I start thinking about all the people, the younger people now, and that's been 20 years now, they all drinking Red Bull. They're all
Right.
drinking stuff like that. And then I start thinking, here, going like, you know what? I can see that now because the 25, I guess the same group of people that they look for on television, the 25 to 40-year-old group, that's kind of what I
Yep.
think. They're drinking stuff with Red Bull in it or whatever they're drinking in it. And now I'm thinking, now I know. Now I know. You were a
Yeah.
smart man. I mean, you were a smart man to figure that out because that is going this way. My son, that's all he drinks is Red Bull all the time.
Yeah.
So I can see it now.
And with this, for example, for those people, like for example, in clubs in Atlanta, and we're very few, but growing. And I like to be very, like, when people have interviewed me,
Hmm.
some of my partners will go, "Oh my God, but you're you're so honest." Well, I said, listen,
Why not?
this is not a circus, right? And I'm
No.
not here, and one of the three rings to saying how great we are. We
Right.
work really, really hard, right? And the most important thing is, and then this will lead into Joe Bonamassa. It's what we learn that basically counts, right? So for us, the energy piece was important, but we also didn't want to go, 200 milligrams of caffeine, 180, 220,
What's in a cup of coffee?
78,
Okay.
right?
Right.
So for us, it was, we mimicked occasions of what you would normally do. But for example, there's the pousse café. The pousse café is a digestif after dinner, right?
Hmm.
So that is
Right.
alcohol and coffee.
Right.
So my point is, I don't want to have this person going home with tachycardia, but I do want him to enjoy his coffee and his liquor, and maybe
That's funny.
maybe he'll find something fun to do at home when he gets at night, right? It's like, honey, are you asleep? No, 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 I'm awake. Well, thank God for Grand Brulot,
Well,
you know?
and yeah, because normally you drink and you drink too much, you go home and go to sleep. Now
Absolutely.
you got the
Yes.
other end, and you're like, I'm still awake. What's the deal?
Yes, if you're a growing family, we're only helping you grow your family.
Boy, that's very Italian there, my friend. That's very. So, I can see it
Exactly. We
already.
want, yeah. So maybe for China it'll help. But anyway, but so yeah, so it's doing what's right. In terms of the company, we're in growth mode. And one of the things that's critical is how do you get your name out there? Because if I could do this 330 million times or
Oh
209
yeah,
million
yeah, yeah,
times
yeah,
in
yeah.
terms of the drinking population,
Right.
well, I
Yeah.
should be able to convert some,
Right.
right? So I said, we need a voice bigger than our own,
Hmm.
right? So for us, when I was at Pepsi, we did a lot of music.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, they
I was
always do a
involved
lot.
with a lot of music, and number one, like you said it from the beginning, the overriding theme is you got to have fun whatever you do.
Yep.
You're always going to run into challenges, barriers, and you eventually find your way out of it. But it's a lot better if you can do it having some fun
Yep.
and then enjoying it. Now, I'm not talking about laughing. I'm talking about just coming away in a good feeling.
But you know what? It's funny because every band I interview, artists, single artists or big artists, I always ask them the same thing. Are you having fun?
Yeah,
Because, it's a job. People, young people I talk to like, oh, I want to go on tour. And I said, you don't realize that's a job. I mean,
yeah,
it's a lot of fun. But all of them, I can see they're going like the first thing, oh, yeah, we're having a great time. Exactly what you're saying.
yeah. And for me, like with Grand Brulot, if I was telling my kids, my daughter's in business school up in Boston, and I said, I'm going to write a book one day or teach a class, and it's going to be called 3 a.m. And she goes, 3 a.m. What's that about? I said, that's when I wake up thinking
Uh,
and concerned,
yeah.
right?
Right.
And taking the good, but the things that you got as a responsible person, whether it's business, your personal life,
Yep.
it's what keeps you up at night,
Yep.
right? Which was one of the first things that one of my partners, Steve Heyer, asked me, the guy from Coke. He goes, "What keeps you up at night?" You know. So he asked one time. The second time he asked, it was so many things. I think he stopped asking. That's probably why he doesn't ask me anymore. But anyway, so looking for what was right, looking to have fun, spreading that voice. We wanted to see, what was that artist? Well, who was that? What did that persona look like that can help with Grand Brulot?
Right.
And I was actually at the gym and I was looking at one of these PBS music shows that had Burt
Hmm.
Bacharach and Dionne Warwick.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So I'm looking at this thing, and it was about the history of music,
Hmm.
right, and the influence of hip hop, and I said, wow, this is such a cool genre, and they talked about the blues and talked about
Hmm.
jazz and all these
Hmm.
different things. It's because it's never about an artist and the music he plays. I love the human aspect. What's the story? Just like Grand Brulot has a story. It's a 200-year-old
Gotcha.
tradition.
Yeah.
Well, the artist and the music has to have a story.
Yep.
When I was at Pepsi and there was an artist, and my boss said, "Oh, I want Pepsi 7 times in the song." And I said, "Why did we pick this artist?" And he goes, "Well, for his music." I said, "Exactly. So let him feel the brand, let him write the song, and we'll see if Pepsi fits."
Yeah.
At the end, it's about the communication.
Yep.
So going through a series of artists, looking at speaking um, to groups that manage multiple artists.
Right.
you know, there's affordability,
Oh,
there's
sure.
likability, there's all
Yeah.
these different things you have to consider. And with my experience, it was more about, well, I want an artist to come in, but he has to be an investor. I want him to be vested in the property.
Hmm.
Because if he doesn't believe in it and he's just
Yeah.
doing it as a promotional venture,
That's
I
not
don't
good.
want I don't want it.
No.
Right?
No.
It's like if
They're just a paid mouthpiece at that point. They
right.
don't. Yeah.
It's one of those things where if you're interviewing me to promote Rick Troutman, right, at the end of the day, and you're paid, it says paid announcement. Well, it's not the same thing.
No.
The fact
Yeah.
that I'm here, I'm actually enjoying this, it's something else,
Yeah.
right? There's credibility. So the same
Right.
thing with the artist. So Joe had a niche in blues.
Hmm.
Blues is when you look at in terms of music, blues registers less than 9% of all listeners.
And I'm a blues guy. That's what I
Right.
started playing, so I understand all of that.
Right. But the greatest level of engagement comes from the blues audience.
I could see that.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
they're extremely loyal. So
Yes, that's
Joe,
true too. Yep.
so Joe will fill up every venue.
Yes, he
He
does.
has one of the highest ticket prices that he carries. So there was a lot that we could build on with him. And he loves Grand Brulot. He drinks it. He takes it on tour. He puts, he promotes it.
Sure he does. Yeah.
One of the challenges, like with everything, you have a challenge. It's not all a rosy picture, but with him, it was more about how to weave Grand Brulot into the into his fabric.
Hmm.
His fabric meaning his persona, his music, his audience, the expectations.
Hmm.
He's private but sociable. He's he's not overly commercial.
Mm.
So those were the challenges of making the music, the blues and the Brulot
Right.
blend together.
Right.
You know. So we started working with him in last quarter of 2021.
Okay.
So we've been on tour with him.
You had it last year too, wasn't he on tour with you
Yes.
guys last year? I
Yep.
remember. And then when I saw him going out this year, I saw the information. I think the thing that's interesting to me about him is the fact that everything you said is exactly the way he is. Now, you obviously know him personally, but here's the thing. He's private, but he does a lot of stuff to let people know what's going on.
Yes.
And I'll just tell you a quick story. I just interviewed a group out of Indiana called the Cold Stairs. And he told me, the gentleman I was interviewing just went up yesterday. He said one morning in 2019, he gets up and he looks at his phone and it's people like he's gotten like 50 texts. Okay. And he goes, uh-oh, my mom died or something happened. What happened? So he looks at it and the guy calls a guy and he says, you need to go to Joe Bonamassa's Instagram site right now. He goes, why? Just go there. Joe had picked this band's album up and said something to the effect on his Instagram site. This is my find for this year, this band. Changed their trajectory just like that. It was hilarious. I mean, funny in a way because he said the next day I get a call from Fender. What kind of guitar do you want?
Really?
So, I mean, but he didn't have to do that.
Right.
He could have just gone on and said, and also I see him all the time. I know. And so this gentleman and Joe, of course, Joe's probably bigger. They're both guitar collectors. I know Joe's into that a lot. So he says, I text him every time I think I find something. I text him and go, what, should I buy this? So the relationship there is beyond just musician to musician.
Right.
And I think that's what you see from him performing is, and a lot of people don't know who he is. I mean, I've talked to people, I don't know who he is. But if you're in the business, obviously you know who he is. And if you go to any of his, you see him play, he sells out everywhere he goes. And obviously, but so I can see that. But it's one of those, and then also I think he's I call him an elevated artist. I grew up with, I'm old enough to see the Beatles and all that stuff, but yeah, I remember the 70s when beer was, the Who were supported by Bud or I don't know who they were.
Sure.
And they'd have the beer cans and all that stuff.
Yep.
When you're doing Grand Brulot, that isn't beer.
Right.
That you're saying to people, I have a sponsor that I like, that it's a, lack of better words, classier product.
Sure.
And that kind of elevates that. And the other thing about it too is I've watched several concerts of him on YouTube. He never shows up in a t-shirt and jeans. No. The band's dressed up. They look,
Yep.
And it's like
he's dressed in black, elegant, hair pulled back, his glasses.
Yeah.
A different persona.
So I can understand why you did it, and I didn't really understand it first, but now I completely understand it. And the fact that you're looking at an international star too, and this, I'm not telling you the American and Europe, which you've got Paris and London,
Belgium, Luxembourg.
Yeah, and then so
Germany.
people go, what is this stuff? I got to try this out.
Yeah.
I off this subject a little bit. What have you found that people, when they drink it, do they drink it with something or they drink it straight up or on ice?
It depends on the audience. Like, for example, right now, among the younger people, the espresso martini is going off the charts.
Wow.
So Grand Brulot and this is a this is one of the plugs for the brand, but
No, no,
you
no.
know,
That's what, go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah, we're one of the best. We're in the best places in every city that we're in. Nobu, Masuhisa, Le Bouquet, Bobby Vans, Lagulu, um, Peter Luger's. Places people know. Bagatelle before the COVID. But people, what they do now is like they would drink the espresso martini, which is probably number two to margaritas. And the espresso martini typically was vodka, coffee liqueur, and espresso. Right?
Oh, wow.
And,
Okay.
and you would shake it, and it was developed. They say either by Kate Moss or Naomi Campbell
Mm,
in London because it was before a show or something.
mm-hmm.
With Grand Brulot, all you need is it's Grand Brulot, a shot of espresso, and like we'll put a little like amaretto on it.
Mm,
Take it
mm,
25 times, and it's 25 times. That's what the bartender at Dead Rabbit told me. So
yeah.
I do what people tell me, right?
Yeah.
And it's the most insane espresso martini you can have. You know, we were at this really great French restaurant, and they said, "Oh, we make our own." And I said, "Well, let's do a little challenge, bringing back my Pepsi days, right? Remember Pepsi challenge
Oh, yeah. Oh,
versus
gosh.
Coke?"
Yeah. I forgot about
So
that. Yeah.
yeah, well, everybody else did. So
It was like New
so
Coke, where's that now? It's gone. Yeah, for years.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
So Grand Brulot, we did it, and everybody said, "My God, visually, it's impactful, just because it speaks quality." Right. So
Well,
when I
that's what.
talk
Yeah,
about the
I see
VSOP, 80
that. It
proof,
says
right,
class. It says
right,
class.
exactly. So that would be the most popular in terms of mainstream. But then you have like the cigar bars, and they'll
Mm,
drink it with a 2-inch ice cube.
hmm.
If you go to Bobby Van's on 46th and Park, it's one of my favorite steakhouses. There they'll do the Brulot Manhattan because
Hmm.
Grand Brulot, just like blues blends with everything.
Yeah,
Grand Brulot blends amazing with bourbon. It cuts a little bit of the bourbon, but respects the taste. So I tell people like Grand Brulot is like a great friend. You can invite him to any party, and he mixes and blends well with everybody. He can have
that's a great
different,
analogy. That's a great analogy. Yeah, because there are always those people you want there at your party.
right, and you
That
remember them.
and you remember because they always go around the room and people know who they are. They may not remember their names, but it's like, who was that guy I was talking to? They
Right.
know that.
I mean, when I was young, I'm probably your age, but when we would go out and you would drink a lot, and you get home and your parents are waiting for you, and they say, "Get him some coffee," right?
Which, but all the old movies are like that. They remember
Right.
the
Get
old
him some
TV
coffee.
shows.
Yeah.
He's
With the
drunk. Give
police
him some
station. Hey,
coffee.
give him some coffee. So we save that step for people. So you get the buzz and the kick.
So tell me a little bit about what your plans are now as you grow the company. I mean, you're looking at obviously expanding more in the United States, or kind of what's your kind of game plan, if you don't mind telling
Well,
me.
no, no, of course. Well, we want to make sure that what we do is because you know I get very excited with opportunity,
Hmm.
and some of my natural tendency is, oh, let's give the world Grand Brulot, but that's very,
Oh,
very
yeah, I
expensive,
understand that.
right? So
Yeah,
developing a market, you're basically setting your cash flows back because you got to develop, you got to invest, and by the time it kicks in, 6 months to a year have passed, right? So there's that constraint. But for example, we're looking to make a bigger impression in Asia.
hmm.
I'm looking to at least establish a foothold in Hong Kong.
Okay,
There was an interest in Shanghai, but basically it requires a level of investment that
yeah,
right now I need to really solidify our footprint in the U.S.
I got it.
But we're exploring right now, um, the Bahamas, for example, right? So in the tourist area and Independence. So that's one. In the case of the U.S., I should be in 15 states by June, which
Are
we're
you
excited
you're in
about.
Dallas now? Or are you in Texas someplace?
Yes,
Do
yes, we're in. Yeah, Texas is our best market.
you know who the distributor is for you
Yes,
guys?
Serendipity.
Okay.
Yep, Serendipity. They're very, very good. They're small but focused. I have a great salesperson in Texas. who does an amazing job. We also we use the services of Blue Ridge sales company, which are very good. So we basically have, we have the structure, and the most important thing is, let's make sure that we do one thing right before we go to the next,
Oh yeah, sure.
right? But
Yeah.
but what's
You
really
can't
gratifying,
you can outgrow yourself real quick.
exactly, and what's really neat is the level of interest. Like for example, I met a wonderful guy out of Israel that wants the brand, right? He's and he writes to me, every quarter. He goes, Francisco, are we ready? You know, are we ready? And I'm like, I'm ready, but not completely.
Yeah.
The
No, I
interest,
understand
the
that.
trust, so, but what's great is that people really love the brand, and that's what makes me excited. Like you were saying earlier, when you talk about Joe Bonamassa being an elevated artist,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're talking about Grand Brulot being a classy product. Well, you don't, class doesn't scream and shout.
No.
Class
Mm-mm.
walks subtly in, and it's embraced and appreciated.
And you're 100% right there. And it's not something that you can reach for, but sometimes that you don't deserve it. I mean, that
Nor
may sound, you know what I mean? It's like
you can't buy it.
you
You
can't buy it.
can't buy it. You can't steal it. You can't take it.
No.
Either you have it or you don't.
And it's funny because in the music industry, as you well know, that subtleness really plays through
Yeah.
because you got him, and then all of a sudden sees people all the time. Hey, what's this Grand Boulot stuff that try it out? I just really think it's a cool product, and I think you're a smart man. I mean, I looked at your bio. I already knew where you've been, but
Yeah.
you don't, some people might go, well, he keeps moving around. No, he keeps moving around because it's successful. And you like a challenge. I already figured that out. You want a challenge of something new. As an artist myself, when I write a song, you want people to like it. The challenge is there to write something people are going to like,
Right.
and it's the same way with interviewing people. I spend a lot of time interviewing independent artists because I want to give them a leg up. People I know in the industry that somebody goes, oh, they're really good. Let's give them an opportunity. And I think it's really great. And I think that Joe will continue to do a great job for you. Obviously he does it because that's why we're on this conversation.
Yeah.
And,
No.
and I don't know what else to tell you, but I think it's a great idea. And I hope, I just continue to wish you much success for it.
Oh, thank you. No, I really enjoyed it, and it's like when you sent me the email, I was totally flattered, and I said, you know what? Like I said earlier, I'm gonna tell you a quick story.
Go ahead.
I'm on a flight from New York to Los Angeles,
All right.
and I'm going there for the Grammys. And sitting next to me is this really attractive lady. I was single.
On the plane.
On the plane.
Okay.
Super, super attractive.
Right.
Jackie O, glasses. I mean, beautifully dressed.
Yeah.
And we started talking. And at one point, we started getting philosophical. And she says, how do you define success? And what are the drivers? What are all these things? And I said to her, well, it seems that you're very successful from what you're telling me. She owned a couple of production studios, had artists, and I didn't know what her name was. And she goes, oh, my name is Nancy Orbison. I said, oh, pleasure to meet you, Nancy. I'm Francisco Tonarelli. And she takes her glasses and goes, do you know who I am? I said, you just told me your name is Nancy Orbison. She goes, oh, give me a break. I said, what do you mean? She goes, I'm Nancy Orbison. And I said, I'm sorry, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. She goes, pretty woman.
As I was thinking, it has to be the daughter, probably, was who it was.
His wife.
Oh, it was his wife. I thought his wife was
wife.
Barbara for some reason. I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, maybe it is Barbara.
Well, it doesn't matter. It was an Orbison. It was an Orbison. That's all that matters.
It was his wife. Beautiful. I mean, just gorgeous. Yeah. I guess it was Barbara. Maybe that's why she was.
No, I don't remember. I thought for some reason. Yeah. That's hilarious.
But then she said to me, she goes, Roy and I were successful because even when we weren't feeling well or we were busy and somebody took the time to invite us, we would go because you never know who you're going to meet. In fact, we opened a production studio from somebody that we met at a dinner party that we didn't even want to go to. So my advice to you is always be available.
I always thought about that. And I started realizing, and you know the answer to this. What's the old saying? If you never ask, the answer is always no.
Right.
And it's funny because when I saw that you guys, I thought, what, it'd be interesting to see why does this brand, who I didn't know anything about except I read about it and all that, I've never had it. Why are they sponsoring this guy? Because I know it's not cheap.
Right.
It's never cheap to do stuff like that.
Yep.
And why would he accept it? And so I thought, well, I think it's great because you're part of the music industry, even though you're not really part of it, but you are.
Yeah.
And you got a fan base that'll continue to grow. Francisco, thank you very much, my friend.
Oh, my pleasure.
Well, that's it for this episode of The Trout Show. Thanks for joining us. My special thanks to Francisco Tonarelli from Grand Brulot for coming on and talking with us. For more information about Grand Brulot, visit their website at grandbrulot.com. That's grandbrulot.com. For more information about Joe Bonamassa, visit his website at joebonamassa.com. And you know me, I'm The Trout. You can find us at thetroutshow.com. It's only rock and roll, people, but we love it. See you next time.